Preface. mynovabooks presents The Soviets Will Come, a Warsaw Uprising Story by Aleksander Kowalski. A one-shot episode, an intimate, unflinching wartime vignette that lingers about courage, loss, and the fragile weight of memory. To explore more, please visit mynovabooks.com. The following voice will narrate your audiobook experience.
Hi, I'm Kacper Novak. I will be the narrator for this story.
The following voices will serve as characters for your audiobook experience.
Hi, my name is Walter Hayes. I will be the voice of Antony.
All other characters in the story will be voiced by me.
Now sit back and enjoy. Now reading, The Soviets Will Come, a Warsaw Uprising Story.
The attic was dark and low, smelling of dust and old wood and fear. Rain, or maybe distant artillery, pattered on the roof tiles above. A constant, uneven tapping. Someone had draped a blanket over the tiny window. Only a covered lantern cast a weak, yellow glow over the sloping beams and the two figures hunched around a battered radio set. Static crackled. Then a voice burst through, thin but determined. The Polish army of Polish patriots calls on the thousands of brothers thirsting to fight, to smash the foe before he can recover from his defeat. Every Polish homestead must become a stronghold in the struggle against the invaders. Not a moment is to be lost. The words filled the cramped space like a trumpet blast. Marek held his breath. He was 16, all elbows and sharp bones. His armband, white and red, clenched in one pale fist. His heart hammered so hard he thought the man on the radio might hear it. They did it. He whispered. They really did it. Antony, his grandfather, grunted. In the weak light, the lines in his weathered face deepened. A hint of a smile twitched at his mouth.
Took them long enough,
He said.
You hear that? We're an army now.
An army. Marek's gaze dropped to the old bolt-action rifle propped by the wall. The mismatched ammo. The pile of rags they called bandages. An army of broken bricks and stolen rifles.
That's all an army ever is.
Antony replied.
Broken bricks, stolen rifles, and stubborn idiots who refuse to lie down.
Outside, distant explosions thudded across the city. The murmur of gunfire rose, sporadic at first, then growing like a storm finding its voice. Shouts in Polish drifted faintly up from the street. Marek turned back to his grandfather, eyes bright. We start tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Antony snorted.
Boy, listen. Not a moment is to be lost. That's what the man on the radio said. You want to disappoint the radio?
Marek tried to laugh, but it came out nervous and breathless. The Soviets will come, he said. He'd heard it in whispers for weeks. The Red Army pushing west, the Germans retreating, the front crawling toward Warsaw like a long-awaited tide. We just have to hold until they get here. Antony studied him for a heartbeat, then reached out and tightened Marek's armband around his bony arm.
Yes?
He said quietly, as if blessing him.
The Soviets will come.
They said it together then, like a vow, like a prayer. The Soviets will come. Outside, Warsaw began to roar. By morning, their street was unrecognizable. Trams lay on their sides like dead beetles, strung together with overturned tables, wardrobes, doors torn from hinges. Sandbags bulged where someone had managed to find sand. Elsewhere, it was just sacks filled with rubble. People swarmed the barricade. Women with aprons still on, boys with armbands too big for their arms, old men with the stiffness of old injuries in their legs. Marek and Antony staggered under the weight of a wardrobe they'd stolen from a shattered apartment. Faster! Gazik shouted, his voice carrying over the chaos. He was in his late 20s, beard stubble dark on his jaw, an armband tied tight over his sleeve. "Come on, boys. The Panzer won't wait for you to rearrange the furniture. We should get real sandbags." Marek puffed.
You see any sand growing on trees?
Antony shot back.
Lift.
They heaved the wardrobe into place, ramming it between a tram and a stack of broken chairs. Just behind them, a woman handed a small boy a bucket full of bricks, which he carried solemnly down the line like a sacred offering. A girl darted past Marek, no more than 12, hair tied back with an old ribbon. She wore the same armband as the rest, a satchel banging against her hip as she dodged around adults. "Kazik!" she called, not even out of breath. From command, Germans regrouping on Marshakovska. Heavy machine gun. Kazik snatched the folded scrap of paper from her satchel. "Good girl," he said. "Eat something. I will when we win." She shot back. As she bolted past, she flashed Marek a quick grin. "Hey, new boy, you look like you've never been shot at before." "Trying to keep it that way," Marek said. "Good luck." She was gone almost before he'd finished speaking, vanishing into the tangle of bodies and debris.
Kids these days.
Antony muttered.
When I was 12, the most dangerous thing I carried was a loaf of bread.
He paused.
Sometimes.
He picked up Marek's rifle, checked it with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this in another war, another lifetime. Marek watched his grandfather's hands, still steady, despite the years.
Finger off the trigger until you're ready,
Antony said.
Don't waste bullets. Don't be a hero.
I thought that's the point, Marek said.
No.
Antony handed the rifle back.
The point is to be alive when they raise the Polish flag again.
In the distance, artillery boomed. The building behind them shuddered. Dust drifted from broken window frames. "Positions!" Kazik shouted along the barricade. "Positions! They're coming!" Young fighters scrambled behind piles of junk. Someone passed out extra ammunition, a handful of cartridges here, 2 there. Marek slid in beside his grandfather behind the barricade, knees pressing into rough cobblestone. His mouth had gone dry. "Jadek," he whispered, "how long do you think we have to hold?"
Just long enough,
Antony said. "For what?" Antony nodded past the rooftops, toward the unseen east.
For that. The Soviets will come. They're already at the Vistula, they say. Steel beasts, whole divisions.
Marek sucked in a deep breath and felt something steady inside him. "The Soviets will come," he repeated. The sound reached them then, the grinding clatter of tank treads. Not from the east, but from down the street, from their own side, coming towards them. A German machine gun burst into harsh, metallic laughter. Bullets tore splinters from the barricade. "Fire!" Kazik bellowed. Guns roared along the line. Marek flinched, then forced himself up, squinting over the wardrobe's edge. He saw shapes among the rubble. Gray uniforms, helmets. Raised his rifle and fired. The recoil shocked him back down behind the barricade. A bullet smacked into the stone where his head had been a moment before, spraying grit across his face.
Good.
Antony said, beside him, already working the bolt on his own rifle.
Again. Don't think. Just breathe.
Marek's breath came too fast. His hands trembled, but he surged up again, squeezed off another shot, dropped back down. "We'll hold them," Marek gasped, half laugh, half terror. "We just have to make it to..."
Make it to the river.
Antony finished.
The Vistula is our wall. The Soviets will come.
They said together, as bullets whined overhead and the city's first day of uprising bled into chaos. Beneath the barricades, another Warsaw had taken shape. The cellar stank of earth and sweat and cheap disinfectant. It could have been any basement in any tenement, Low ceiling, rough walls, a tangle of pipes overhead, except that every scrap of floor was covered in bodies. Some moved, some moaned. Some did not move at all. Marek sat on a crate, his shirt sleeve rolled up to the elbow. A nurse, hardly older than he was, wrapped a bandage around his scraped arm with quick, practiced hands. "It's just a graze," she said. "You're lucky. Everyone keeps saying that." Marek replied, "One day you won't be." She moved on without waiting for an answer. Drawn toward a man on a blanket whose breathing rattled like loose stones, Antoni sat nearby on another crate, his own sleeve torn, dried blood crusted along his cheek. He watched Marek with a tight-lipped expression that might have been pride, might have been fear. Around them, the cellar groaned and breathed. A child with a bandaged head dozed against his mother's side. An old woman clutched a rosary so hard her knuckles had gone white. Kazik lay on a low bed, pale, a bandage at his side slowly blooming red. Marek scooted closer to him. "You said you were bulletproof," he said. "I said the city was bulletproof." Kazik replied, managing a crooked grin. "Turns out I was wrong about something. Imagine that."
We still hold 3 streets.
Antoni said.
Maybe 4?
2. Kazik corrected. "We lost the post office this morning." His face shuttered. "They lined everyone up outside. I heard." He stopped. The unfinished sentence hovered in the air, heavy as smoke. In the silence that followed, a faint echo of gunshots seemed to drift down through the ceiling. "Never mind," Kazik said. Someone in the corner started quietly sobbing. The radio, perched precariously on an upturned bucket, crackled, hissed, then cleared. Heads lifted all around the cellar. Conversations died mid-sentence. A new voice came through. This one smooth, confident, carrying a foreign edge that still tried to sound like a friend. "Citizens of Warsaw. Soldiers of the Polish capital. Your heroic struggle will not be in vain. The Red Army stands on the eastern bank, preparing to deliver the final blow to fascism. Maintain your courageous resistance. The hour of liberation is near." A murmur swept the cellar. People shifted, sat a little straighter. Someone made the sign of the cross. A woman laughed, a small, broken sound that was somehow hopeful. "They're there," a civilian woman said, clutching at her shawl. "You hear? On the other side of the river. I told you." "See?" Marek said, turning to Antoni, eyes shining again. "They're ready."
Yes.
Antoni said, though his voice sounded tight.
Yes, I hear.
"If they hit the bridges, if they cross..." Kazik's eyes had gone bright, feverish. "The Germans won't be able to." A huge blast cut him off. The whole building shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Candles flickered wildly. Someone screamed. "Everyone stay down," the nurse shouted. They hunched close to the floor, waiting for the world to decide if it was going to crush them or not. The rumbling rolled away at last, leaving the cellar trembling, but standing. "Jadek," Marek whispered, when his heart had slowed. "Do you trust them?"
The Soviets?
Antoni's gaze stayed on the cracked bricks above. He was very still.
I trust the Germans to kill us.
He said at last.
I trust the Soviets to kill the Germans. That's enough for now.
"But after?" Marek pressed. "After all this?"
After?
For a moment, there was a flicker of humor in Antoni's eyes, brittle and black.
Ask me after.
Footsteps clattered on the stairs. Basha stumbled into the cellar, panting, hair damp with sweat, her satchel bouncing against her side. "They told us," she gasped, barely pausing to catch her breath. "The Red Army's guns are close, across the river in Praga." People say they can see the tanks from the rooftops. The cellar buzzed. A man smiled for the first time in days. Someone else burst into tears. "Told you," Marek said to her, grinning despite himself. "We'll win before you finish the bread you never eat." "I'm going to eat so much bread when this is over, I'll explode," Basha announced. She dropped down beside him and dug into her satchel, producing a small, precious scrap wrapped in paper. "Here, half of half a potato." She shoved it at him. "Commander's orders. You're too skinny. You should keep it." Marek protested. "You run more. Don't make me hit you," she said, rolling her eyes. "Take it." He did, then split it cleanly in two and pressed one half into Anthony's palm. "We hold until they cross?" he asked. Basha nodded solemnly, as if they were sealing a contract. "We hold until they cross," she said. Marek raised his invisible glass. Basha and Anthony did the same. Their fingers brushed in the air. "The Soviets will come," they said softly, together. The words floated up, fragile and determined, into the stale, smoky air of the cellar, where wounded men groaned and explosions thumped overhead. Days bled into each other. September turned into a gray smear of smoke and hunger. Marek found himself on a rooftop one evening as the sky bled red into dusk. The city below looked like a painting someone had tried to set on fire. Whole blocks blackened, streets punched open by craters, church spires broken and leaning. He lay flat beside Anthony near the ragged edge of the roof, peering past shattered chimneys toward the east. The wind brought the faint smell of the river, dirty and metallic. "There," Marek said, squinting. "You see them?"
I see them.
Anthony answered. Across the wide strip of water, where the light was already fading into shadow, dark shapes lined the eastern bank. Tanks with their squat, heavy turrets. Artillery guns. Trucks. Troops that looked like rows of toys from this distance. All of them still. Engines rumbled faintly, a low, steady growl beneath the sounds of burning Warsaw. Now and then, a distant shell went off, but always somewhere else. Not here. "They're so close," Marek said. "They could be in the city in an hour."
Maybe two.
Anthony replied.
They move slow when they're fat with victory.
Down below, a building in the middle distance suddenly gave up, collapsing in on itself with a roar. A column of dust shot upward. Tiny figures, civilians, scattered around it like ants whose hill had been kicked. "They're killing everyone in that district," Marek whispered.
They've been killing everyone since September 39th.
Anthony said quietly. "But we're still fighting." Marek swallowed. "Doesn't that matter?"
To whom?
Anthony asked. Marek stared across the water, willing something on that far bank to move. "To them," he said. "To Moscow, to London, to somebody." Anthony's eyes didn't leave the broken skyline.
You're a good boy.
He said at last.
Good boys think someone must be watching.
His voice softened.
Bad old men know. Sometimes. Nobody is.
The radio said. Marek began.
The radio says many things.
Antoni cut in.
Did the radio tell you to look out when the first bomb hit your school?
The memory hit Marek like a blow. Sunshine, chalk on the blackboard, a descending whistle, his teacher's face going white, then everything flying apart. He flinched. I thought, he said hoarsely, I thought this time it would be different.
You're here.
Anthony said.
With a rifle. That's different. We chose this fight.
He gave a small shrug that looked painful.
The rest is above our heads.
A single gunshot echoed up from the street below. Then another. Then a crisp volley, controlled, regular, spaced almost evenly. Marek froze. Execution squad, he said.
Yes.
Antoni said. They could stop them. Marek whispered, staring across the water, his hand clenched around the rifle. They're right there,
We don't look away.
Antoni said. Marek's instinct was to close his eyes, cover his ears, pretend the sounds belonged to a bad dream. Instead, he forced himself to stay looking, listening. The volley ended. There was a pause, then a final shot.
Remember that.
Antoni murmured.
We don't look away. That's the only power we have.
Marek's throat burned. The Soviets will come, he said. He heard the crack in his own voice. The words felt heavier now, like something rusted and hard, but he lifted them anyway.
The Soviets will come.
Antoni repeated. He said it gently, like he was smoothing down a child's hair, even as something shadowed his eyes. They lay in silence after that, listening to Warsaw burn, while across the river, the tanks waited like patient beasts, engines humming, guns pointed at nothing in particular. The cellar looked different the next time Marek stumbled down the steps. It wasn't the cracked walls or the crooked lights. Those were the same. It was the empty spaces, the beds with only blankets now. The fact that no one bothered to hush the coughing because there were fewer people left to be disturbed. Basia lay propped on a pile of cushions, pale beneath the grime. Her leg was wrapped in a dirty bandage from thigh to calf. Each twitch of movement sent a wince across her face, but her eyes were still sharp. You should be in a real hospital, Marek said, crouching down. He tried to smile. With clean sheets, and doctors who don't use the same needle on everyone. This is a real hospital, Basia said. We have real rats, and real coughing, and real not enough bandages. She smirked, then sucked in a breath as her leg protested. Who did that to you? Marek asked. Sniper. She said, missed my head, got my leg. She tilted her chin, proud. Bad aim. You're making them look bad. That's my job. Across the cellar, adults murmured in low, angry voices. Heard they've stopped attacking on the east bank, a man said. Just watching. Watching what? A woman replied. Watching us die? Maybe they're negotiating. Another voice offered. Maybe they have orders. Orders to let us bleed, the first man muttered. Marek listened, jaw tightening. Hey, Basia nudged him with her elbow. Don't listen to them. Old people always think the worst. You're 12. Marek said. Yes, she replied. And I know everything. It's a curse. She fumbled under her thin pillow and pulled out a small, carefully folded scrap of paper. If I don't make it, she began. No, Marek said sharply. If I don't, she insisted, pushing the paper into his hand. Take this to my mother. She's in Żoliborz, near the church with the broken steeple. It has the address. You'll take it yourself, he said. Promise me, she said. He hesitated, then nodded, closing his fingers around the paper. It felt too light to carry so much. I promise. Good. She sagged back against the cushions. Tell her. Tell her I saw the uprising. Tell her I wasn't afraid. You're allowed to be afraid, he said. That's your job now, she replied. A familiar voice crackled to life from the radio in the corner. The Soviet announcer again, smooth as ever. People of Warsaw, your struggle inspires all who fight fascism. Hold on a little longer. The Red Army is with you in spirit, and soon in arms. Basia snorted softly. In spirit, she murmured. Do you think spirits can carry ammunition? Marek didn't answer. He stared at the lantern flame, watching it gutter whenever a distant blast nudged the air. The Soviets will come, he whispered. more to himself than to her. "If they feel like it," Basha muttered. He looked at her. She half smiled, half grimaced. For the first time he saw it in her eyes too, the small, hard seed of doubt. As the days dragged on, the fight tightened around a few stubborn corners of the city. The key building didn't look like much from the outside. It was just another battered tenement, its facade cracked and scorched. A corner of the roof had collapsed inward. Some of the windows were boarded up, others gaped open like broken teeth. But from its upper floors, you could see a vital intersection, the way the street bent toward the river. "Lose it," Kajik had said, and they lost their path to the water. In the dim stairwell, Marek stood on a landing with Antony and Kajik. Dust floated in the thin light from a window where the glass had shattered long ago. "This is it," Kajik said. His voice was rough, and he had to brace himself on the wall. The limp in his step had gotten worse. "Headquarters says if we lose this building, the Germans cut off our route to the river." He gestured vaguely downward. "No more supplies. No more wounded getting out. We're done."
We've been done for 3 weeks, by my count.
Antony said. Kajik gave him a sour smile. "Then we're late to our own funeral." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a flare. Short, stubby, precious. He pressed it into Marek's palm. "Last one," he said. "Save it for if you see any movement from the east. Maybe the Russians don't know what street to aim at. They've had plenty of time to check a map," Marek said under his breath.
Take it anyway.
Antony said.
Light it when you have to. Make sure they can't say they didn't see.
Marek slipped the flare into his jacket, feeling its weight like a promise he didn't quite believe. "They're pushing from the south," Kajik said. "Flamethrowers, probably. We hold each floor as long as we can, then fall back up." He looked at Marek. "If you run out of bullets, you still have bricks, yes? And my charming personality," Marek offered.
The bricks will be more effective.
Antony said. They laughed, briefly, a dry, shared sound. It died quickly. Footsteps pounded on the stairs below. A fighter appeared, breathless. "They're moving!" he shouted. "Tanks at the end of the street. Positions!" Kajik called. "Go!" Fighters scrambled into doorways and behind overturned furniture along the stairwell. Marek and Antony took cover behind an old wardrobe leaning across the third-floor landing, its drawers long gone.
Remember,
Antony said.
Short bursts. Breathe. Don't think about the ones you miss.
"What if I miss all of them?" Marek asked.
Then curse them so thoroughly they feel it in Berlin.
Antony replied. Downstairs. The deep roar of a German tank engine grew louder. Another sound joined it, a peculiar hissing, like some monstrous kettle.
Flamethrowers.
Antony muttered. Heat bloomed below. Orange light rippled along the walls. The flamethrower's jet washed through the lower hallway. Screams burst up through the floors. Terrible. Then cut off. The smell hit them a moment later, thick and scorching. "Hold!" Kajik roared from somewhere below. "Hold!" Boots thundered on the stairs. Marek's heart rammed against his ribs.
They come.
Antony said.
Get ready.
He didn't sound afraid. He sounded tired and very, very calm. From below, Kajik's voice rose again through the smoke. "Third floor. Hold them. Don't let them." A savage burst of gunfire tore up the stairwell, drowning the rest. The echo of it snapped off his shout mid-word, and then there was only the roar of the guns. Below them, men shouted in German, their boots hammering against the stone as they climbed. For a heartbeat, it was all noise and smoke and blind firing. Then something small and dark skipped into view out of that chaos. Marek saw it roll, smoking, bounce once, and begin to spin to a stop. For a heartbeat, his mind refused to understand what it was.
Grenade!
Antoni shouted. He grabbed Marek by the collar and yanked him behind the wardrobe, pitching him backward up the stairs. Marek hit the step above, the breath knocked out of him. The grenade exploded. The world became white light, then nothing but ringing and weightlessness. Dust and splinters pelted his face. For a few seconds, he heard only the thin whine in his ears, like a kettle screaming. Sound came back in pieces. Shouts, gunfire, the crash of falling wood. Marek forced himself up onto his elbows, coughing in the dust. "Dziadek?" he called. His own voice sounded far away. "Dziadek!" The stairwell was a blur of gray. Where Antoni had been a moment ago, there was a mess of broken boards and stone. Marek stumbled down a step, grabbing the wall. He found a shape amid the debris. A body, pinned by a splintered board. "No," he whispered. "No, no." He knelt and pulled away enough rubble to see his grandfather's face. Antoni's chest was dark with blood, his tunic torn. Each breath he took was a ragged struggle. His eyes were open, though still sharp enough to find Marek's. His mouth twitched, trying to turn itself into a smile.
You still have all your limbs?
He rasped, the words thin and broken, but stubbornly joking. A choked sound escaped Marek, half sob, half laugh, and he nodded, tears already spilling. "Jaju, don't talk. We'll get you downstairs. We'll..."
Downstairs is gone,
Antoni said. He tried to cough. It came out as a wet, choking rattle.
Listen,
He went on.
Don't waste your time on old bones. The city needs the young.
His fingers, still strong despite the shaking, grabbed Marek's sleeve and dragged him closer.
You make sure they remember we stood.
He said.
You tell them we waited.
"Tell who?" Marek asked, tears blurring his vision.
Everyone.
Antoni breathed. His eyes flicked upward, as if he could see through the building to the river beyond.
Especially them.
German voices echoed closer, up the stairwell. Another burst of gunfire chewed at the walls. Marek hunched instinctively over his grandfather, shielding him with his own body as if that could help. "They'll see," he said. "I'll make them see. Just stay, please."
You were right.
Antoni wheezed.
At the start. It's about being a hero, after all.
"You said."
I lied.
Antoni said. The corner of his mouth twitched.
Grandfathers are allowed.
He lifted one blood-smeared hand and brushed clumsily at Marek's cheek, leaving a streak.
Say it once more.
He whispered.
For me.
Marek's throat closed. He could barely get the words out. "The Soviets will come," he said.
Again.
Antoni murmured. "The Soviets will come," Marek repeated, louder, his voice cracking with anger and grief.
Good boy,
Antoni said. He exhaled in a long, shuddering sigh, and then he was very still. "Jaju," Marek said. He shook him once, twice. "Jaju, get up. You promised we'd see the flag together. You promised." A bullet chipped the stone by his head, showering him with grit. German shouts echoed up the stairs, closer than ever. Marek forced his hands to let go. Gently, he laid Antoni's head back down on the step. For a heartbeat, he just knelt there, looking at that familiar face turned slack and quiet. Then he grabbed his grandfather's rifle with one hand, clutched his own with the other, and staggered up the stairs, lungs burning with smoke and grief. The rooftop was a shattered plateau of tiles and broken beams. Marek burst out into the open air, stumbling. The sky was a sickly gray-orange, lit by the fires of dozens of burning buildings. Smoke smeared everything. The sun was just a smudge behind it all. He lurched to the edge of the roof, ignoring the crack of gunfire below, and looked east. There it was, the river, broad and dull, slicing the ruined city from the waiting army. On the far bank, the shapes were clearer now. Tanks, artillery pieces, trucks parked in neat rows, lines of soldiers, dark silhouettes against the fading light. All still, all quiet. Engines rumbled, tracks clinked as someone shifted weight, but nothing crossed. No guns swung toward the city. No shells arced overhead to smash into the German lines. Marek pulled the flare from his pocket. His hands shook so badly, he almost dropped it. "Here!" he shouted, though they were far too distant to hear his voice. "We're here!" He struck the flare for a heartbeat. Nothing. Then it burst into harsh red light, sparks spitting, smoke curling upward. He held it high, stepping up onto a narrow ledge at the roof's edge, completely exposed. "Look at us," he bellowed. "Look at us." The flare hissed and burned, casting his face in a bloody glow. Against the inferno of the city, it was a tiny, desperate star. He stared across the river, eyes stinging. He watched the tanks, the guns, the ant-like figures of the soldiers. Nothing moved. "Do something!" he screamed. "Please!" The flare burned down, hot against his fingers. He barely noticed the sting. Tears cut clean tracks through the grime on his cheeks. "You told us to rise," he shouted. "You called us brothers." Words from the broadcast spun in his head. Heroic struggle. Final blow. Liberation is near. "We did what you asked," he cried. "We're dying for it." Behind him, German boots pounded ever closer up the stairs. A stray shot from another building whined past his shoulder, ripping a chip of plaster from the wall. Marek didn't flinch. His whole world had narrowed to the opposite bank of the river. "The Soviets will come," he said hoarsely. He heard how it sounded now, like a curse, not a promise. "The Soviets will come," he repeated, more bitterly. He kept saying it under his breath as the flare sputtered and dimmed, the words falling apart in his mouth. When the flare finally went out, he tossed the dead cylinder aside. It clattered on the tiles, still smoking. Across the water, the Red Army sat and watched. Engines hummed. Tank turrets pointed elsewhere. Men moved in orderly lines that had nothing to do with the burning city before them. His hand found a knife almost without thinking. Marek slid down from the ledge and sank to his knees beside a section of shattered wall. The plaster was cracked and pitted with bullet marks, a rough surface that snagged at his fingertips. He pulled the small knife from his belt, the same one he'd used to cut bread, to whittle, to slice bandages. It looked ridiculously small now. For a moment, he just stared at the blank strip of wall in front of him, breathing hard. The smoke stung his eyes, the rumble of tanks, so far away and yet so present, thrummed in his bones. Then he pressed the tip of the knife to the plaster and began to carve. The metal scraped harshly. Bits of white dust flaked away, clinging to the blood already drying on his hands. Each line took effort, the letters uneven, gouged, but legible. His fingers cramped. He kept going. When he stepped back, his chest heaving, the message was there, scratched into the ruined skin of the city. The Soviets were watching. Blood and soot smeared the grooves. He underlined the words once, hard, as if he could cut all the way down to the foundations if he just pressed harder. Below, the German voices were on the last flight of stairs now. A sharp command snapped through the air. Marek leaned his forehead against the wall, just above the words he'd carved. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the roughness of the plaster against his skin, listening to the overlapping sounds: boots, shouts, crackling fire, distant engines. He lifted his head and looked one last time across the river. The Soviet tanks waited, engines idling, exhaust faintly visible. Men moved in their shadows, watching, doing nothing. Merrick's jaw clenched. His face was hollowed out. Boyish softness burned away. On the wall beside him, his words stood stark against the crumbling plaster. The Soviets were watching. Smoke curled in front of them, making them seem to flicker in and out of sight. Somewhere in the distance, a tank engine revved a little higher, its growl rising like the city's own swallowed anger. Boots crashed onto the rooftop behind him. The story of what happened in that final moment was swallowed in gunfire and smoke, in the roar of a city still burning and the low, indifferent churn of engines across the water. The words on the wall remained, and the Soviets kept watching.
End of The Soviets Will Come, a Warsaw Uprising Story.
Outro.
Thank you for joining us in finishing The Soviets Will Come, a Warsaw Uprising Story, written by Aleksander Kowalski and narrated by Kacper Novak. We appreciate your time and attention as we explored this powerful piece of history together. To discover more great selections, please visit mynovabooks.com. Thank you for listening.